do need to make that disclaimer. Both Sam and Josh have done separate senior projects for their capstone course. However, what you're going to see today is part of a culmination. There's a paper part to it as well, of a directed study that I had the privilege and pleasure to work with and really just witness and facilitate in some way. They did the work. I just asked lots of provocative questions. As they explored some issues that have come up through their 4 years at Villanova. And I might say that they also were prompted not only from their lived experience, those certainly in large part that is what you're doing here, but also in terms of the reflective material that we have explored in courses like multicultural leadership, in the intergroup relations, the IGR courses that both of these gentlemen have taken, right? So as a result of all of this, and Josh's senior project group, actually in part, which is looking at masculinity, Sam's taking my gender and communication class, a lot of different things, they decided to begin to explore Black masculinity on Villanova's campus, right? Using performance ethnography, using focus groups. So those of you that need research methods, you can hang your hat on those two things, right? So there definitely was a component of looking at literature, of talking to people, of reflecting on their own lived experience, as I said. And I am very excited, as I'm sure you are as well, to see what they have come up with to present, and as I said, to lay the groundwork for our conversation afterwards on being Black and male at Villanova. So without further ado, I give you Sam Ellison and Joshua Meekins.
Thank you, Dr. Bowen. Thank you, everybody, for coming out. I know you'll have busy schedules, so we certainly appreciate you being here. Again, our project is called Being Black and Male at Villanova. We'll explain a little more about it once we're finished the performance section. But first, we are starting out with a poem by a guy named Javon Johnson. It's titled "'Cause He's Black." Then we will move into the performance pieces. Josh will be performing first, I will be performing second, then we will come together for a joint performance. Then we'll have a sort of rationale of what the project was, impetus for the project, and then we'll lead to Q&A. Okay?
I'm driving down the street with my 4-year-old nephew. He knocking back a juice box, me a Snapple. Today, y'all, we are doing manly shit. I love.
When you have a teenager, windows of opportunity to talk can open and close fast. Use prom and grad.
Watching the way his mind works, he asks, back a juice box, me a Snapple. Today, y'all, we are doing manly shit. I love watching the way his mind works. He asks a million questions. Uncle, why is the sky blue? Uncle, how do cars go? Uncle, why don't dogs talk? Uncle, uncle, uncle. He asks uncle, uncle, uncle. He asks uncle, 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 as if his voice box is a work record. I try my best to answer every question I do. I say it's because the way the sun lights up the outer space is because engines make the wheels go. It's because their minds aren't quite like ours. I say yes, no, no, yes, no, yes, no. I don't know. Who knows? Maybe we laugh. He smiles, looks out the window, spots a cop car, drops his seat and says, "Oh man, Uncle, 5-0, we gotta hide." I'll be honest. Not happy with the way we raise our black boys. Don't like the fact that he learned to hide from the cops well before he knew how to read. Angrier that his survival depends more on his ability to deal with authorities than it does his own literacy. Get up, I yell at him. In this car, in this family, we are not afraid of the law. I wonder if he can hear the uncertainty. It's today the day he learns that Uncle is willing to lie to him. that I'm more human than I am hero. We both know the truth is far more complex than do not hide. Both know too many black boys who disappeared, names lost, know too many Trayvon Martins, Oscar Grants, and Abner Louimas, know too many Sean Bells and Amadou Diallos, know too well that we are the hard-boiled sons of Emmett Till still. We both know it's not about whether or not the shooter is racist. It's about how poor black boys are treated as problems well before we're treated as people. Black boys in this country cannot afford to play cops and robbers if we're always considered the latter. Don't have the luxuries of playing war if we're already in one. Where I'm from, seeing cop cars drive down the street feels a lot like low-flying planes in New York City. Where I'm from, routine traffic stops are more like minefields. Any wrong move could very well mean your life. And I will look my nephew in his apple face and tell him to be strong. We both know black boys who are murdered every day simply for standing up for themselves. I take him by the hand, I say be strong. I tell him, I say be smart. Be kind and polite. Know your laws. Be aware of how quickly your hand moves to pocket or wallet or ID. Be more aware of how quickly an officer's hand moves to holster a gun. Be black. Be a boy. Have fun. Because this world will force you to become a man far more quickly than you'll ever have to need to. He lets go of my hand, but Uncle, he asks, Uncle, what happens if the cop is really me? And it scares me to know that he, like so many other black people, is getting ready for a war I can't prepare him for.
That was Javon Johnson.
Just another night in the office. It's just time to get to work. Can y'all believe all this trash that's lying around? I mean, it's like these kids have no home training. They think this place magically gets clean, but little do they know I'm the backbone of this whole institution. Half of y'all don't even see me or even know my name. It's amazing how far this university's come. Especially for black people like me. I see these young black men walking around campus, unrealized and power they have, stressed, trying to fit in. But I think this community needs them. I think this community needs them to guide them to a better place. But it just doesn't rely on the students. It's the faculty and staff too. Black men must come together and unite to move this community to a better place. But what do I know? I'm just a janitor. You don't see me or even know my name.
Time to check these CAT reports. Incorporates relevant content from the course, explains the material in the course very effectively, is passionate about the subject, definitely recommends course for their students, workload is fair, challenging. I heard he's unapproachable and intimidating. I heard that he was hard to meet with him. I heard he's stubborn and he's not understanding. I heard he brings up race all the time in class discussion. I heard that he's irritable. What am I doing wrong? This isn't me. These assertions aren't even true. I try my best to cater to my students and foster relationships with them, but I feel every time they open up, they don't want to share their opinions with me. It's bad enough I have to walk around my own campus at my own job and feel as though I don't belong. There aren't many of us here, black male professors of this. interpersonal relationships with my students, and to educate them on how to move this community forward. How can we move this community forward if I feel as though I don't belong in it? If people constantly avoid and typecast me for what other people assume. I wish my students would get to know me and how do they perceive me to be. Maybe if I start making little changes within myself, then they'll see me for who I am. Then again, maybe they're right. Maybe these movements are a problem. Maybe I am intimidated. Maybe I am irritable. Maybe other things I said about me are true. Who knows? Why should I have to change?
Ring.
Hello?
Hey, Dad. What's going on?
Nothing much. Just got home from work. Just realized that I was first month of college. Seems like yesterday Mom and I dropped you off and left you at your dorm. She still can't really get over it.
It's all right. It's, college is college. I'm just trying to focus on next semester.
Next semester, you just got there.
Yeah, but I'm just trying to stay focused,
Okay. So how are things going socially? Making any friends or any cute girls?
I mean, everything's fine. I tried to go out last weekend, but it just wasn't that fun.
Why not?
Well, kids kept asking me if I knew this dance or if I was on the basketball team. It just doesn't feel like I have my own identity.
What do you mean it doesn't feel like you have your own identity?
I mean, they keep asking me things like I'm here for athletics, right? Or it's affirmative action. I mean, it just doesn't feel like I belong. Or they talk about I'm not black enough, or I just don't act black. It's just, I don't know that, I don't like it.
They said that to your face?
Yeah, they did.
Well, maybe if...
Listen, Dad, it's the people. I don't like that.
Well, what is it about the people that you don't like?
Well, they're not my type of people. They're not black.
You didn't send you there to fit in, son. Your mother and I worked like tooth and nail to get to college. And I didn't even have that opportunity to go to college when I was your age.
It's not, listen, it's not developing me as a person.
Listen, son. Through times of hardship is where you find your true identity. Us black men, we've worked through the toughest of times to create the image that we want people to see. Sometimes when it feels like you're in a community where you're invisible is where you can shine the most. It's tough stuff. But people don't see you. That's a shame. But you have the opportunity to create an image that you can create for yourself. Don't let others define who you are, and don't be afraid to actualize your potential.
Well, I never thought of it that way. Maybe you're right. I have to deal with this my entire life.
It's also true, son, but that struggle is what makes us black men. We cannot allow others to define who we are.
All right, Dad. Thank you. I love you.
Love you too, son.
Well, son, I'll tell you. Life may have been a crystal stair, It's had tacks in it and splinters.
The boards thrown up. Places with no carpet on the floor. Bare. But all the time,
Eyes been climbing on, and reaching landings and turning corners, and sometimes going in the dark.
where there ain't been no light. So boy, don't you turn back. Don't you sit down on those steps. Because you find it's kind of hard.
Don't you fall now, for I still going, honey. I still climbing, and life for me ain't been no crystal stair. All right, that's the end of my performance. I think we should actually introduce ourselves. My name is Joshua Meekins.
I'm Samuel Ellison.
Technical difficulties.
Here we go.
All
All right.
nice.
Come on. So, the impetus for this project, for Josh and I, certainly we've both been alive as black men in this country for 21 years or so. And Josh and I actually came into Villanova together in a way because we were in the same orientation group. Good times, right?
Very good times.
So certainly we've had different paths. I came here as an athlete as well, and Josh. Go ahead.
Yeah, I didn't come here as an athlete. We had the same kind of upbringing, but I definitely chose a different route through college throughout my career. So.
Yeah. So I think one of the biggest reasons we decided to do this project is because of this image we have of black men as a threat in the physical sense. So we were both particularly, I guess, traumatized by what happened with the Trayvon Martin ruling back in July. And then to see what happened with Jordan Davis back this January. And certainly all of that is reminiscent of, the mangling and beating of Emmett Till back in the 50s.
And it really made us start to think about how us as African-American males walk around this campus and how we're perceived, and the different experiences everybody has going throughout all 4 years here, because I feel like as a black man, you grow from your freshman year to your senior year in ways people can't really understand.
Right. So we decided that we wanted to do something to address that. And we felt that certainly the student perspective is important. However, students are only here for 4 to 5 years. And the culture at Villanova is a cyclical one. It's not one that's just adapted each year. Certainly we have a way of leaving our imprint here, but our culture here is stable, which is why we wanted to include the perspectives of faculty and staff. We were trying to figure out how many black male professors do we have? Took us about 10 seconds.
10 seconds.
And certainly that's like funny, but it's also
It's different.
scary.
Yeah.
Because many of them are here right now.
Yep. Thank you, guys.
Thank you for coming. And many of them participated in our focus groups. So we decided to conduct 3 focus groups, combining all the perspectives in one place. So we had students, we had faculty, and we had staff all in one room, fleshing out the issues that are prevalent for black men on this campus. And again, we didn't want to just talk about our experiences. Certainly they are important, certainly they are relevant, but we felt not only that we could learn from these older men, but we could have a different perspective for this performance. So this is just some of the literature that we used. Pursuing Trayvon Martin was put together by George Yancey, and I forget the woman's his first name. But basically, they too were struck by the Trayvon Martin decision. So the cover of the book is a picture of
Like a Trayvon character.
yeah,
with
it's,
his hood up.
Trayvon, it's just someone with a hood. You can't really see the face. But we thought that was so interesting because pursuing Trayvon, that's exactly what George Zimmerman did. He pursued this young boy, and all he had on him was Skittles and iced tea. And certainly Josh and I felt, you know, as President Barack Obama said, Trayvon could have been my son, Trayvon could have been me. And the fact that that is sort of weighing on your shoulders is something that we felt we needed to assess. So something else we used was stereotype threat from Claude Steele, which basically talks about, first he and his partner did a study about priming students who are taking standardized tests with the knowledge that they are indeed black and all the statistics that are working against them. And it turned out that in that priming, the students performed worse than the white students, their counterparts. So stereotype threat kind of applies in many different ways, but basically it's kind of internalizing the notions that you are inferior or that you are, or that your positionality has negative stereotypes and what sort of effect that has on you and what you're doing. And last, Are We Not Men? Masculine Anxiety and the Problem of African American Identity really helped us kind of dig deeper into what is black masculinity and what does it mean today.
Different themes, the discreditization of blackness from whites. So basically when someone says like you're not black, or like the Oreo thought, like you're black on the outside but white on the inside, it's kind of like saying like, hey, like you might look like everybody else, but you kind of act like me, you know? So it's kind of like the educated black man not really being a true black person. Feeling out of place or trapped, unable to identify with campus population. There are a lot of different, I want to say, circles within the black men at this campus, whether it be athletes, whether it be black Greeks, whether it be black men or within different organizations, or black men who affiliate themselves with white organizations. At the same time, a lot of people don't know if they fit to these certain groups or want to fit into these certain circles. The image of the black male threat, which throughout our studies, we found many different definitions what the black male threat would be and what it is to each of us individually. There is the physical threat. We may come off physically threatening to many different people around the campus. There's the sexual threat of how people like to experiment through college, they say. So the black figure is always seen as a sexual being. And then the intellectual threat, which is personally my favorite, how we feel as if black men can not only are we on the same playing ground intellectually, we can compete in the classroom, we can compete in all variations of education. And the dominant narrative of the single story, which is the dominance of stereotypes. There are many different stories. There's no one single story of what a black man is and how he comes to define himself. So we wanted to make sure we stuck upon that theme.
Again, with the themes and the conclusions that we got from this study, we kind of created this diagram of what the social hierarchy of black men at Villanova is. So, start at the top. You have black male student athletes, side by side with black males in Greek life, because both student athletes, at least, you have the visibility of playing on a big scale. Everybody knows your name. Everybody can see you, whether you're wearing your athletic gear. Black males in Greek life also have that desirability because they're also very visible. You can see them wearing the letters, holding parties, whatever it might be. Second level, black male athletes, black male non-athletes, and non-Greeks. And these students we categorize as the second level. And predominantly they'd probably be involved in multicultural organizations, hang out a lot with the black community, and they still have a presence on the community, but they lack the iconography of the first two. And the bottom of the totem pole, I suppose, is black male, non-Greeks, non-athletes, and largely involved with the white community, whether it be organizations or their predominant friend groups. They happen to be at the bottom of the totem pole. Mm-hmm. However, as you can see, the black male student athletes are not connected because they sort of have a trump card over everybody else. But at the same time, they're the most stigmatized. And the stigmatized notions that we use for black male student athletes are thus put on to all these other black male students who cannot decide what identity they would like to create for themselves. So we thought that was really interesting, and I think intuitively it makes a lot of sense. But to see that and to see how, one, we have this negative image of black men who are predominantly athletes, predominantly not intelligent, unable to think for themselves, unable to advocate for themselves. And with these negative images of student athletes, we sort of emit them onto all the other black men who are on this campus. And certainly that's extremely problematic, extremely sad in a way, that while they certainly in a way have the power, they are also the most disadvantaged. So our conclusions from this were mostly these 5 things. Being visibly invisible. And by that we mean certainly you look around this room, you can identify people by their race. You can identify that there are black men here. But to a certain extent, we feel invisible. And we feel as if we are not paid attention to, our concerns are not taken seriously, and we are not really a part of this community. So in a way, we're walking around this campus, people can see us, but we don't feel as though we are here, for myriad reasons. Next was the necessity to disprove negative stereotypes, which is a big theme within our focus groups. And certainly a lot of, this is kind of sounds negative, but we wanted to put a positive spin on this as well. But something that I guess many black male students at least, they have this urge to disprove what people think of them. So trying to outwork their classmates, not just because they want to be the best, but because they don't want to be what people expect them to be. And then the dominance and internalization of negative stereotypes, certainly, as you can see with our performance piece, the son calling his father, all those things aren't far-fetched to happen here. And all of these things are what we got out of our focus groups. We didn't just get them out of thin air. And I think, with joking about affirmative action, always being presumed to be an athlete, all these other things are negative. And as black men, we're internalizing it constantly, and trying to figure out ways how to combat those things that are constantly thrown at us. Unrecognized power. You can say that.
Sorry. My voice is kind of shot, so bear with me a little bit. Unrecognized power. It's the fact that within this community, us being there's so few black men that we have the ability to change the community in drastic ways that we don't realize or that we don't come together to do. Because whenever there's an opinion on something that needs to be made from a black male standpoint, there's 100 of us to actually voice his opinion. And we have so much influence on the campus that we don't use. It's incredible to see that this what power and ability that we actually do have.
Right. And that angst for connection and positivity is also very much linked to that, because with all the negative media images, with all the negative that is surrounding the black male community, there are good things happening. And I think what was interesting is some of the questions we asked in our focus groups were, what are your visceral conceptions of what blackness is? In what ways do the negative interpretations of blackness affect you in your daily life? And sometimes the answers were negative, sometimes they were positive, sometimes it depended on your age and how long you've been on this earth. But I think one of the people in our group said blackness is power, which we thought was really powerful. And that unrecognized power is something that black men aren't necessarily tapping into all the time because of all the things that they're dealing with, aside from the obvious, I guess. And just to kind of get into our decisions with the performance itself, again, since we had faculty, staff, and students, we wanted to give a perspective of all three. So with Josh being a custodian, I know for me, at least, being on the newspaper and staying in Dr. Hall till God knows how late, I'd walk downstairs to get some water, walk downstairs to go to Connolly, and you see there's a bunch of black guys cleaning up. And I don't know how many people know that, but it's almost like they're this invisible army who comes in, and then we come back the next day and the place is spick and span. Nobody knows who they are, nobody knows their stories, nobody knows that they're even here. And that's the invisibility piece that we're talking about. Certainly, if you're here, you're going to walk by them, but you don't see them. You don't know their names, you're not going to take the time to figure out who they are, you're not going to take the time to figure out their stories. And to a certain extent, that's also even applicable with our people in dining services or people in facilities. They're there, but they're serving us. And we certainly thought that needed to be included and to be analyzed. And with the second piece with the professor, we thought that that image of intellectual threat is something that students have not necessarily explicitly made racially motivated comments, but certainly we live in an age where microaggressions are the new way of discrimination, and racism is covert. You know, the Donald Sterlings of the world are few and far in between, or at least they're not going to poke their heads out for everyone to see. So we wanted to show how frustrating that is, and how frustrating it is when you're trying to make it here, in addition to feeling as though you don't belong here. Even as a professor, you've been through the work, you've done the work, you probably have a PhD, you're well respected in your community, and still students don't necessarily take you seriously or respect you for what you've done. And last, with the father-son piece.
The third piece, the father-son piece, it was focused upon how a lot of black males feel on their first year at Villanova. For me personally, I know my first year was kind of hard for me because it's a lot to take in once coming here. At the same time, like, you don't know where you belong. There's not really that many people to guide you, to actually help you kind of identify yourself. So you're going through a lot of self-identity. And we wanted to have that come across, especially with there being a father figure or a mentor figure in that person's life, for him to talk to understand, like, you're here for a reason. You might not know what that reason is yet. It may take you 4 years, 2 years to find out that reason, but you're here for a reason, especially with the line that we used when we said, oh, I've heard my mom or my dad tell me a million times, we didn't send you there to fit in, but we did send you there to get education. But they always constantly reminded me personally that there's more to being a black male in this world than there is just to getting education. You have so much more to offer the world. And it was through that we wanted to go through like a self-identifying journey to becoming in his own blackness.
Right, and certainly I'm lucky enough to have my parents sitting in the front today. And when you think about what your parents have done for you and all the sacrifices they've made, we really wanted to show that with the father and son conversation, because I think many of us, we're lucky enough to have fathers. That conversation isn't a fantasy. It has happened. And being here, as Josh was saying, your first year, you're kind of confused. And certainly the experiences run the gamut, but we wanted to make sure we put a positive spin on it. And certainly with all the negativity surrounding this community, we wanted to show that there is a father-son relationship, and two men are able to connect over their plight in a way. And the dad in the performance says, this is our struggle, but this struggle also makes us stronger. And we can't allow other people to define who we are. We can't allow other people to dictate what we are here to do. So, with that last piece, the connection and the positivity, we wanted to make sure we didn't solely focus on the negative, because it is so easy to sort of have that drown out everything else that happens on this campus, and drown out the fact that black men are doing good things, and black men aren't just, listening to hip-hop music and gallivanting on the weekends, whatever it might be. So yeah, those were the conclusions of our project. Were really, it was a growing process for both of us.
Yeah, it definitely was.
And we're very, very thankful in a way that we decided to go this route and sort of explore ourselves in a way, and explore the black male community at Villanova.
I don't want to take time. Well, we have some other time that we can talk, but I know that we all are really a little awestruck by what you've presented today. And I'm going to let you two use your best facilitation skills. We have about 10,
Put us
12
on the
minutes
spot.
to have some comments. Is it okay? Are you all right to do that?
That's
Or you
fine.
want me to facilitate?
We can do it.
Okay, to facilitate some comments and discussion, I'd love to hear some feedback. Because the one thing I do want to say is by working with you and working on the topics that I do work on here, I almost get desensitized to how other people come to a performance and a presentation like this. So I'm really anxious to hear folks' responses. Thank you very much.
Let me give you all a hands-on account of black male invisibility. I have just I've befriended and have been friends for a long time for one of the more renowned African Americans that graduated from Villanova many years ago. He attained heights that most of us probably only read about in history books. This gentleman was a double gold medal winner in various Olympics, as well as being a coach here for like 15 years, and coaching his son thereafter for another gold medal. So the gold medal, we have 3 gold medals in one family. The gentleman also has a PhD from Harvard, as well as a PhD from the university here at Villanova, as well as his son was became an attorney, renowned, et cetera, et cetera. But the point is that we presented earlier this year for recognition for this person to the Alumni Association to give him consideration for the St. Thomas Medal. That is a medal, perhaps if you are not familiar with, is a one-time medal that's given to persons of renown who've done great things for the university over the years. We present that according to the prescription as indicated earlier in the year, I think early February. We were never even given the consideration of acknowledging a receipt of this document. We waited several months thereafter, and 2 weeks ago I called the head of the Alumni Association, and he was befuddled. He said, well, I'm not sure. He said, I remember receiving it, but I'll look into it. The long and short of it is that we feel that there was 28 renowned persons that have attended Villanova as well. They were all track stars. They were all persons of stature here at Villanova. They all participated in the recognition and submission of this document to the board. And they basically ignored it. And I was told by the hierarchy that, well, you know, this gentleman has received substantial recognition as a PhD and as a gold medalist and all these things. And we just kind of think that, you know, maybe we'll check with him on our next go-round. So I say that in acknowledgement of what these gentlemen have done. This is something that you're going to have to look forward to in the future as far as the dichotomy is. How do we relate to future activities, future events, future points of view that we want to extrapolate, that we want to present? We have to be a part of every element of society, in particular the society here at Villanova. You have 3 major components that you will have to deal with as African Americans, as anyone. You have, number 1, you have religion. Religion plays a substantial recognition no matter where you are in society. In some aspect of it, if you're in Europe, if you're a Catholic, you become ostracized. If you're Protestant, you become ostracized. If you go to the Greeks, the Greek Orthodox, you are ostracized. But the next element in the pyramid is going to be economics. Economics plays a vital role in whatever we do and perceive ourselves in terms of that mobility in life. Everything relates basically to some facet of economics, okay? And the next component that you will have to be continuously deal with is politics. So no matter how this structure goes, if we don't have a political alliance between each other, we will be victimized by it. So I don't want to take you chaps time, but I just thought I would give you a hands-on view of what has happened to African Americans that have attended Villanova and also have attained heights here, but were kind of overlooked by a relative of mine, which is called, I don't know how well read you are, but if you're not, you need to read The Invisible Man. That's by an uncle of mine. It's called Ralph Ellison. So I think that this is an indication of how visibility has captured us. But I thank you for my opportunity, my son and Josh, to articulate this in a more meaningful way as it relates to the university. And I certainly hope that I did not impose my experience upon you, but I thought that would be something relative anyway. Thank you.
Quick question. So I'm really curious about the focus groups and about the fact that you brought faculty, staff, and students together, and it seemed like in some of the conclusions or the themes and those little hierarchy that you showed, that relates to students primarily, right? The athletes versus the non-athletes, the Greeks, etc. But what happened, like in the focus groups, what surprised you, or what connections? I don't think it happens very often that faculty, staff, and students, all black men, get together in those groups like that. So what were the dynamics that were surprising? What were the connections that were made? What were the relationships? Are there going to be relationships that continue outside of this that that maybe were forged that hadn't been before? Can you talk a little bit about that?
I think the first surprising thing was to have all black men in a room together talking about black male problems. Like, I'd never seen that happen on this campus ever before in my life. So that was like my first wow factor. We actually did it. Like, we made that happen. I think second for me was just the amount of experience and knowledge that each person had individually. Because, like, say we had a student who had a problem. There was so much insight from the faculty and staff. Like, well, I've been here for this many years. I've seen this happen. Maybe you try it this way. There was definitely a lot of mentoring going on. And then the thoughts and understandings of what it meant to feel to be a threat on campus. Like, everybody's had a different definition. Like, maybe let's say the younger generation was more negative and the older generation was more positive. And they kind of explained where they came from these conclusions. And that was very interesting to see also.
That's great. Mark?
Did you find as you were working on this project, did you get any negativity from the community as you worked on it? You would tell people what you're doing?
People seemed, I guess, kind of intrigued, and I guess it was not really something people thought about. Not really something people thought was a problem, and certainly being in the focus groups, it is. And certainly in our own lived experiences, it is a problem. But no one really reacted negatively. They kind of just, not taken aback, but they were like, oh, okay, I didn't think about that. Let me know how it goes,
Yeah. There were a lot of hows, too, like, how are you going to do that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you think that this problem, because you're from Villanova, because most people here are from a suburb type area, do you think it's more of where you come from, or is it more of just being a black family? Does it have to do with city type?
I think what's interesting is, let's say you come from an urban community where chances are it's going to be more diverse. And I came from a predominantly white community suburb, about half hour from here. So I ended up not feeling particularly uncomfortable when I got here, because white people weren't a new phenomenon to me, as bare bones as that sounds. But you find there's a lot of students who, even that may be the case for them, but who have interacted predominantly with black people when they get here. And this isn't just for black students, this is for different racial identities, whatever your demographic is. When you get here and you see not just white people, but there's a particular type of whiteness that is pervasive on this campus. So I don't think, it definitely varies, but I think the biggest distinction is whether or not you've really had that experience before.
Just a follow-up question. Do you think this experience of like being abused as you've been around people all the time, do you think that that affects the way like you consider yourself as a black male here, or do you think that does that kind of like desensitize you from certain things and other? And then I guess Josh, I don't know if you're
Yeah, quickly, yeah, it did desensitize me, because if you don't feel as though there's a problem, you're not going to recognize it. So when I was, my first couple semesters, I was like, what's everybody so upset about? And that sounds weird, but that's really kind of how I felt, because I wasn't very affected by it.
That's funny that you said it too, because I was always one like, Sam, you don't see that? Like, but like I grew up in a predominantly black city, and then went to school at a predominantly white institution as far as like high school. So like I was always kind of like the liaison between the two worlds when it came to like my life. So coming here, I felt like I went to school with a whole bunch of white people, but like all my friends need to be black. I had to have where it had to be. But like I wasn't necessarily desensitized, but I wanted to make sure, actually I was a little bit, I want to say, but I wanted to also make sure that I knew who I was at the end of the day. So like I stood up for the things that I felt like were wrong. So if they're wrong, I'm gonna actually stand up for them. So yeah.
Good job, first of all. I guess my question is, what can be done? What do you guys think can be done in a way that we can move beyond, I guess, politics of recognition and visibility to like produce actual social change? Because the problem that I have with visibility is a discourse which then says, okay, let's recognize you, but it's a white recognition again. So what do you guys think can be done that's more structural, I guess?
Well, I think because, again, this culture is so ingrained, when you get to Villanova, as a minority student, let's say, you start to feel uncomfortable. You're like, where the hell do I go? What do I do? Then you start finding people who you identify with. And by and large, you're going to stay with those people who you identify with. And certainly through my thesis last semester, and what we found here is, even when students try and get out of those spaces and reach out to the white students, they don't want to hang out with them anyway, because, you know, what happened with the father-son conversation. And certainly that's not a generalization of all white people, but those are things that happen, and those are things that you feel as though you cannot identify with. So why would you possibly go through the painstaking process of, you know, forcing yourself to be where you don't want to be? So I think on an institutional level, it starts with recruiting different people and sort of educating our students on how, not cultural sensitivity, but educating them on the issues. Because I guarantee you most people don't know that being black here is hard. And you know, that sounds very kind of weird, but it is. And I don't think most students know that. So if we find ways to, whether it's through classes, whether it's through organizations, to bring these topics to light, I think knowledge is power. So if people actually knew that this was an issue, maybe they'd be willing to do something about it. Maybe they'd be willing to, you know, reach out a hand. Because certainly you go to the pit and you see we're still sort of, I don't want to say segregating ourselves, but we are segregated. Oftentimes the minority groups and multicultural organizations, et cetera, whatever it might be, they're hanging out together because they don't want to deal with this sort of stuff that we kind of laid out in our presentation. So I think that's kind of where it starts, is where we're kind of weaving these sort of issues into the curriculum, making students aware that this is a problem.
Maybe we have time for one last question, because we have another group.
I saw Jane had her hand up.
Just real quickly. Can you speak up, Jane?
I was going to say, it kind of, first of all, awesome job. And kind of taking what your dad had to say into consideration. Have you thought about giving this presentation to the board?
Nah, but we would love to.
Yeah, I think quickly, just an anecdote. I told Jane this and a couple of people that I was invited to be on this student life board of trustees meeting, which Kathy Burns invited me to. Thank you very much. And it seemed as though not only the board of trustees, but sort of the reaction of diversifying this campus is to increase data, increase the numbers here, and increase how many people we have. And I don't think people really think about, again, that this culture is, it's sort of static. And just because you're going to put 50 more black kids or 50 more Asians or 50 more Latinos, are things really going to change? And I think that question is sort of relevant for, you know, the diversification of this country. We're going to have a lot more brown people, we're going to have a lot more black people in the coming years, but who has the power? And it's certainly a kind of daunting and ominous reality, but yeah, if they don't know, and if that's the approach, and if that's, yeah, just get more black kids, it's going to fix itself. No, it won't. These things need to be implemented institutionally, so our students can have better awareness so that these things are actually happening.
I know you started conversations that will continue, and long beyond the time that you are here, and hopefully as we make our way into the hallway and on to the rest of our day. And I think I speak for all of us in really with a lot of gratitude for